very simply as y varies directly as x, meaning y equals something times x, or y varies inversely, meaning y times the inverse of x, or times the reciprocal. So inversely means it's going to be in the denominator of the other side. Directly means they're directly next to each other. The k is just a constant, some number. And oftentimes we're going to be finding them. They're going to give us a sentence that we have to put into an expression or an equation and find that constant of k. The k is often going to be called your constant of variability. They just like to mathematically make things overcomplicated. It's just the number that makes this work. But the directly means times your k. Inversely means divide it. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to be building these equations and finding k. And it's going to start out fairly simple, but will get more complicated as we go. You guys ready? Okay. So this instruction kind of paragraph is literally the same on every point. It's the bullet points that are going to change. So it says, express the statement as a formula. Write the equation. Then find k. But this is the paragraph instruction that the textbook has in it. So that's why I was putting the exact same words of instruction. Write it as an equation. Find k is what the paragraph means. Okay, but that's literally what it says in the textbook as the instructions for these. Write the equation, find k, would be how I would word it. I just like to try and make it so it's not.
You said
write the equation, find k. That's what the paragraph means. Express the statement as a formula that involves the given variables and the constant proportionally. Then determine the value of k. The bullet points are what we need to have. Yeah, u is directly proportional to v. Is our first one. So we're going to use those words that we just had on the previous page. If u varies directly, or if u is directly proportional to v, the way we write this as a statement. Oh, sorry. Let me fix that. There we go. If u is directly proportional, that means u equals k times v. It's directly proportional to v. Right? Uses the thing from the previous page. Ta-da, equation. That's what it means when it says write the expression as a formula, or write the statement as a formula. We write that part. We take the proportionality statement and write it as an equation. To find the value of k, we have to give you enough information to do so. So we're saying if v is 30 and u is 12, find k. So we're going to substitute those in. So if u is 12, we don't know k, but we know v is 30. Substituting those in, it is going to be a fraction. So what is k? How do we find k? Divide by 30, and we have 12 over 30. Does that simplify? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both divisible by 6. So k equals 2/5. Yeah. I will often write it then as a formula filling in the k that I know, but they don't specifically tell us we need to. But I'm going to write my proportionality equation as u equals 2/5 v. but express the statement as a formula is this piece. Determine the value of k is this piece. Okay? So that was just one. They're going to start to get more complicated. So R varies directly as S and inversely as T. So we now have two talking about our relationship with R.
Wait, what is the U equals 2 over 5B? What is that?
So that is combining this with our K value. This is usually if we're asked to reevaluate. They don't ask us to do that in the book, but it feels unfinished if I'm just leaving them as two separate pieces. Because what we're doing is basically finding our leading coefficient of a rational or finding our slope of a linear. And it feels wrong to not combine them back together. That's called making my brain unitch. Okay, guys. So this bottom one now has two of them. We have two variables and we have different proportionalities. We have that R varies directly as S. So it's going to be K times S. If all we had was this piece, like if we didn't have the other piece, we would stop right here. But then we have this inversely as T. So our T is going to be under here. Okay? So directly means times your K, inversely means divide your K. And it's going to be the same K. K is just a constant. We don't need to put two of them in there. But that's our find the equation, or write the statement. That's the statement. We write it like that. Then we need to find our K value given this S, T, and R values here. So we're going to substitute those in. So my R is 7. K times my S of -2 over my T of 4. How would you approach solving this? Multiply by 4. Absolutely valid. Multiply both sides by 4 and we get 28 equals -2K. So what does K equal? K equals -14. How to the math or how to the other conversation we're having? I'm going to go with it was for the other conversation that you're having during class, because no one clarified what the how was about. Thanks. Heard that. Okay. I know.
This was a funny noise you made.
Okay. I know you were. All right, so they're gonna get more complicated, but it's the same vibe. The instruction paragraph is still exactly the same. I just have it copied because it's like overcomplicated wording. So now we have y is directly proportional to the square of x and inversely proportional to the cube of z. So they get more complicated, but the setup is still the same. So y is directly proportional, meaning my k is going to be times this chunk, the square of x. How do I write the square of x? X squared. They're just being over dramatic. And it's inversely proportional, so that means it's going to be in my denominator, to the cube of z. How do we say the cube of z? Z cubed. Because they're extra. And that's coming from me. So we know that's a level of extraness. So we're going to take our x, y, and z values that they've given us so that we can solve it. Sorry, I have to put my crossbar on my z because it looks like a 2.
I have a question.
Yes, dear.
Are we gonna have like equations or formulas of the test?
Anything that you need, we will give you, aside from the quadratic formula. But you shouldn't. There shouldn't be anything we need, but we're not going to give you the proportionality statements. So we have to remember that directly means times it, inversely means divide it. So it just takes a little bit of practice. So we're going to substitute in the values that we have. So my y equals 25. My k, x squared, so we have 5 squared. And my denominator is my z cubed, which is 3 cubed. So let's simplify this a bit. So we have 25 equals 25k over 3 to the third. Sorry, I hiccuped right in the middle of that word. 27. What do we need to do next? Multiply by 27. Do I really need to multiply 25 and 27 and get like a big number? No, because I still have work to do, so it's actually going to save us work. Because what's my next step? Divide by 25. So when you get obnoxiously big numbers and we're not to the end, sometimes it is helpful to leave them unmultiplied because I would be multiplying 27 by 25 and then instantly dividing it. Because the 25s cancel. So what does k equal? 27. Okay. Again, not super complicated. Just obnoxious levels of wording. The math itself is not complicated. It's the words that are the problem in this one. Okay? So here we've changed it up on a little bit. Z is directly proportional to the product of the square of x and the cube of y. So again, they've overcomplicated our words. We know that z is directly proportional. So k times something. What does the product mean, mathily? If I say the product of something, what are we doing? Multiplication. So the square of x and the cube of y multiplied together. So the square of x, we've already talked about that one. Square of x is x squared. The cube of y is y cubed. And the product means we multiply them. There we go. Better? So a lot of seat dancing in the back. So let's figure out what k is. We're going to take the values we have. So, sorry, I have to cross my z or it looks like a 2. But that is legitimately the only reason for that little line on my z. So we're going to substitute in the values we're given. My z is 16. My k is the thing we don't know, and that's what we're solving for. My x is 7. And my y is -2. So let's simplify this a little. So 16 equals k times 7 squared is 49. Negative 2 cubed is negative 8. What do we need to do next?
Multiply 49 times -8.
You could.
Divide by -8.
I was going to say, if we divide by negative 8, it is going to make our lives a little bit easier. Because what's our left side going to be if we divide by negative 8? Negative 2. Okay, so watch out for things, because you could absolutely do that, but then we're going to be simplifying big numbers, and it's going to be kind of gross. So we have negative 2 equals 49k. So what's our k? Yeah, and will that simplify down any further? Nope. But if we had multiplied the 49 and the 8, we would have needed to simplify whatever that big number is. Great. I'm trusting you on that one because I didn't type it out even. Uh-huh. Okay, they don't really get worse. Once we're used to the words of it, they don't get really worse. They might switch it from squares to square roots. Let's see. There we go. This one has at least a square root on it. So it's just a matter of practicing these. So then we have y is directly proportional to x and inversely proportional to the square of z. So y is directly proportional, means we have k times this, k times x, and inversely proportional, it means we're going to divide by whatever the heck they're talking about, the square of z, z squared. You can see an exhibit right there, why I have to put a crossbar on my z, because those look identical. So substitute in the values we have. So I have to lock this out because I need to zoom in. So we have 16 equals k times 4 over 3 squared. So we have 16 equals 4k over 9. How do we find k?
Do you multiply 16 times 9?
I'm not going to actually do that multiplication, though, right now, because I think I can spot something that's going to make my life easier since we know something's going to happen with that 4. So I'm just going to write it as 9 times 16 equals 4k, because what do we need to do with that 4? Divide it. So hang on, I'm going to give us more space to the right. So we're going to take our 9 times 16 and divide it by 4. So what simplifies here? The 16 I can divide by 4, and it's going to cancel out with there. So we don't necessarily have to do the full multiplication of 9 times 16 and then divide it by 4, because especially since we don't get to use calculators, that calculation is annoying. So what we really need is 9 times 4, and that one we probably know. 9 times 4, 36. Okay? So it's really a matter of understanding the words and then practicing careful arithmetic. So again, just being really careful with our words. We've got y directly proportional to the square root of x and inversely proportional to the cube of z. So y is directly proportional to the square root of x and inversely proportional to the cube of z. So write your equations carefully. Write your equations carefully. It's all about the words. It's all about the words, and they like to play word games and make it overcomplicated. But the reason we practice with the weird wordings that they have in the textbook is because that is also the textbook that IU has, and they get to write the final. So we practice with their weird wordings so we don't have to play a whole lot of grammar games when it comes to final preparation. Okay? So I can't just simplify the words because I don't get to write the final. So we work with their weird words. Okay, so we're going to substitute in the values we have. So my y is 5. I don't know my k. We've got the square root of 9 over 2 cubed.
It's gonna be 5 equals 3k over 8.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to have 5 equals 3k over 8. Exactly right. Are we going to have any of our math that simplifies itself for us and we have to be super careful? Nah. So we can do this in 2 steps, or we can remember how to do this in 1 and do this as 8/3, multiplying by our reciprocal, which is the exact same thing we've been doing. We're just doing it in 1 step. Multiply by your reciprocal. And we're going to have 40 thirds equals k. So sometimes they're gross.
Wait,
What's it?
do the
Multiply by 8 and then divide by 3. You can do it in 2 steps. Absolutely okay. I just did it in 1 because I'm lazy.
Wait, why didn't you switch to 8 over 3?
So multiplying by 8 to get rid of it, dividing by 3 to get rid of that. So I'm just doing our 2 steps that we did up here. Here we multiplied by 9 and then divided by 4, which is the same thing as multiplying by 9/4. I just did it in 1 step down here. So if we feel like going faster, multiply by the reciprocal. If this works for you, do it in 2 steps. You should wind up with the exact same answer. Okay? I don't care how you do it. If you do it in 2 steps or 1, I genuinely do not care. Okay?
Is the last question?
One more. One more. And that's the last one for the day. And then I'll pass out the review for the test. Okay? Okay? So this time it's giving it to us in a paragraph, so it's worded slightly differently, but it's the exact same dang thing. Express the statement as a formula using the variables. So this is the way that it's worded slightly differently, but it means the same thing. So we've got that z is directly proportional to the square root of x and inversely proportional to the cube of y. So how are we going to write the statement that z is directly proportional to the square root of x? Walk me through it. Z equals k times the square root of x inversely proportional to the cube of y. Over y cubed. Exactly right. Exactly right. They overcomplicate it in the wording, so we have a tendency to overcomplicate it in our brains. Don't let them trick you into overthinking. They're using fancy schmancy words because they want to feel fancy. Okay? Substitute in the values that we have. That's what this part B looks like here. Using the given condition, the numbers. Substitute them in and find the exact value of K. So my Z is 5. My K times the square root of 36 over 2 cubed. Oh my gosh, my shoes are squeaking like crazy today and it's driving me absolutely nuts. So we have 5 equals what? 6K over 8. How do we find what K is? Sorry, oh, fix that so it's not so far out. How do we find what K is? Multiply by the reciprocal or multiply by 8 and then divide by 6. Like, totally fine. Yes, dear. Yes, ma'am. All right. So if we multiply by the reciprocal, we get 40 over 6 equals K, right? Does that simplify?
Yeah.
To what?
23.
20 over 3. You could also simplify here to be 3/4 and then multiply there. You could multiply by 8 and then divide by 6. Multiply 8, divide by 2, divide by 3. There's a lot of different paths through it. And y'all get to drive that ship. But it's all about reading the overcomplicated words and putting them on the paper. The math itself is not super hard. It's just overcomplicated because their instructions are overcomplicated. Okay? I know I still got people writing. Do you guys need me to stay here for a smidge longer? Okay, staying for a smidge longer. I'm going to come and pass out the review for the exam. We do still have a homework over this section. I know. I'm horribly cruel. I'm weak. This is the review for the chapter test, but yes, there is homework. I'm just leaving it up on this page for a second because people are still writing. Oh my gosh, I'm horribly cruel. Friday. Test is Friday. I know on the schedule it says it's tomorrow. We pushed it back a day. It is Friday. The test is Friday. Friday's the test is Friday. Okay? The answer key for the review is, I believe, up. It should have everything I had. I got that.
No, we have to go.
Everything I have. Should have been in that little file on your desk. Alright, I know it's super blurry, like with the clear, but y'all can still read it. I'll make sure the tests are actually clear. Okay, so answer keys for all of the homeworks are up. Answer key for the review guide, if it's not up, will be up shortly. There's only 6 questions on the 4-6 homework, so it's very short because I knew it was really close to the test. 6! There's only 6 homeworks on 4-6.
Oh.
Or only 6 assignments, questions. That's the thing. It's here. Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm just like photobombing here. There you go.